The World Archery Tic-Tac-Toe Olympic Esports Series qualifiers have officially started, an event that no one wanted and no one really cares about. Not even World Archery, who despite having their official branding on the event, have made no announcements at all on any of their media. Starting today, the 27th of April, and ending on the 8th of May, you have 11 days, or 10 after today, to earn your spot on this historic first, one of 6 places in the first Olympic Esports Series in Singapore in June, with flights and accommodation paid for. I've already made 2 videos covering the announcement and the official World Archery World Cup qualifier, #FreeMete. I have to be upfront. While I don't think Tic-Tac-Toe is inherently a bad game, it is an awful choice for an esport and a terrible representation of the esport community and our own sport. But since most people aren't following the news that isn't being released and any official announcements are pretty much derided, I'm going to first report on the facts of the event before I share my opinion. First, a few amendments to my previous videos as more information has come to light. The story about the leaderboard being hacked has been confirmed to be true, however it was only one person who used an exploit. This player has been removed from the leaderboard. However, the qualifying message at the launch of the game was also apparently faked by this person, which was never addressed in any official way. This time attack is in fact not the Olympic qualifier. During my reaction to the Olympics livestream, I alluded that neither of the commentators had played the game. I assumed that this was because the commentary didn't quite match what was being done on stage. But this was more because the players themselves had little clue on how to play the game, aside from the 2 gamers Mete and Matthias. While Karim, the World Archery color commentator, has virtually no experience with the game, the analytical commentator, Harry Thomas, does. But this wasn't made clear in the live stream. He does in fact have a professional background as a Halo player and esports commentator, but he is in fact in the top 100 of the Tic-Tac-Toe leaderboard. But so am I. And that leads me to another point of clarification. A lot of players who play Tic-Tac-Toe, even going as far as unlocking the final arena, think they are actually playing against either human players or a combination of bots and humans. The arena mode, the main mode of the game, is entirely against bots. Climbing the leaderboard isn't a skill-based measurement. It's a grind where you don't even have to play well. It's simply memory, and the bot will always lose. I've only lost when I've grown so bored that I've lost track of my sight while multitasking. Climbing the leaderboard reflects how much time you have put to beat the tutorial, not how good you are in competition. Speaking of competition, I mentioned that there was no community for the game. I'm not entirely wrong. The game has no fan following, a very small official Discord and an unofficial Discord server where a few players do play high-level competitive matches with ELO ratings, and they basically score 10s over and over again. But these are very obscure, out-of-the-way communities, which is a problem that I will bring up later in this commentary. Finally, I do want to highlight a fatal discrepancy in the World Archery Qualifier. As there was no tournament mode released for this game, the athletes at the qualifiers basically had to play on 2 phones with separate accounts by the World Archery, I assume the media team, one of which had the wrong scope. This meant that one player had a huge advantage with a max scope, while the other one was stuck with the starter scope with less zoom and fewer sight pips. Now, if this was a serious competition and the players knew what they were doing, this would have been stopped and redone. This, of course, is the furthest thing from a serious competition. Which leads us now to the official announcement. The rules are long and exhaustive and somewhat counterintuitive to the game itself, so I'll explain it all here. The qualifiers are a separate event from the main game. The event gives out a standard bow for all players, the Artemis, with average stats and a choice of attachments. This doesn't wholly eliminate wind, so it makes the arenas challenging. There are 3 arenas based on levels 5, 8 and 10. However, you have limited plays, so there's no grinding involved. Every day, players get 3 bronze tickets to play the first arena. If they win, they get a silver ticket to play the next arena, and if they win, they get gold tickets for the final arena. Basically, each player has a maximum of 9 possible games, 3 in each arena. If you lose, you also miss out on tickets and must wait until the next day. The leaderboard is decided based on point tokens. Now, these are based on your total score in each round you play. The scoring system has been revised to be out of a maximum of 110 points per shot, so a perfect dead center bullseye will be 110. The leaderboard reflects the total points accumulated in that day. This is important because it is not a cumulative total over the entire 11 days, but it is your best score out of those 11 days. And that means if you started late, or you miss a day, or you have a really bad shot one day, you can still qualify if you beat your personal best. Now, at the end of the event, the top 32 on the leaderboard will be sent invites to a double elimination tournament against each other. The top 6 will compete in the Olympic Esports Series in Singapore with 2 players from the host country, that is Singapore, and 2 world archery athletes. With the official stuff done, let's get to the spicy hot take. There's a mess to cover. Let's first talk about the lead up to the event. Now, you have to remember that this game is very new, made specifically for the Olympic Esports Series back in March. It's extremely disappointing and alienating to not even have an official website with an official, public and transparent announcement. Now, transparency is one of the most important things with organized esports, so information on leagues and events are publicly available for players, fans and the media. Tic-Tac-Bow doesn't even have its announcements in-game, but redirects everything to its small, barely used Discord. Now, this is a bigger problem for its partner game, Virtual Taekwondo, with no information at all on the official Olympic site. It's a small wonder that few people know or care about the event. It is absolutely hypocritical for World Archery to dare partner with and tell people to play this game on their official stream, yet have zero promotion of the game on the event. Not that we want any promotion, but when the overseeing governing body doesn't acknowledge the game like an illegitimate child, it's doomed. And being honest, from the people I've spoken to, there's no love for the game. Unlike real sport and real esports, where the thrill of the game is the appeal, players are only grinding out this event for the free ticket to Singapore. This game has no history, and once the event is over, it probably has no future. And because the game is so new, with no substantial competitive scene, it became worse when the event was launched. Up to this point, no one knew what the actual format was. It is effectively almost an entirely new game. No one has played it before. Players only have 10 days as of now to master it, and you simply don't do this as an esport. Imagine playing League of Legends on Summoner's Rift and the Worlds is actually on a brand new map with new champions released a week before. There's simply no time to learn the metagame and master it. There might be some commonality, but it's almost a different game, which is why major events from these other major esports will freeze their version to the most recent and most stable one. There was no trial run for this event. This quite literally was the first time it appeared. And that caused quite a bit of confusion for people who kind of played the game, and it's probably utterly new to people who just started playing for this event. Now, there are a couple of positive things. Firstly, the standardized bow is a step in the right direction. That means everybody has the same bow and the adjustments aren't that advantageous. They're kind of personalized. Everyone's going to use the wind one because we want to minimize wind, but apart from that, there's no real big difference. So the problem though is that the Artemis bow was not made available prior to the event, so you couldn't practice with the bow until the event has already started. Now, the stats were made known in advance, so you could simulate the Artemis bow on the respective arenas, which were modified to have the competitive wind format. So the fact that you have to pay ranked and pay gold coins to train on these things, it's not a big deal if you unlocked everything, but the fact that you have to basically intentionally lose to master how to play the game is kind of weird. But the problem is that even if you knew the stats, of course you've read the announcements or you've read the Discord announcements rather, you still have to unlock all the equipment, which again isn't that difficult, is it? By this point it's not that expensive. They did jack up the prices by quite a bit before the event. It's kind of a bit of a dick move, but it's still not out of reach. You can still get this fairly easily. It's just the whole process of just give us the bow and give us the arenas so we can practice, so that way there's no unfair playing ground. Everyone has the same thing at the same time. It's the same format. There's still one slight difference here, is that if you don't have Arena 8 unlocked, you don't have the best sight, because the sight is based on what you've unlocked, not what the game gives you, which again is kind of weird. Like, the game gives you 3 attachments for this bow and only for this bow, but the sight is a universal sight. So if you don't have the level 4 sight, then you are at a disadvantage. Kind of weird. The event itself, well, it does make a really nice change, and I think that's the point system. By having the 110 point maximum, it does lift the skill ceiling by a lot. It's kind of similar to real life shooting sports like air rifle, for example, where you can score more than 10. In normal shooting it's out of 10, but for the competitive finals it's like a 10 point decimal, like a 10.9 or something, so you can score a maximum of like 11. And there are some archery formats which do have an 11th center ring as a tiebreaker, or for compound or indoor, so it is legitimate. So it actually makes it quite exciting, because scoring a 10 is no longer a binary thing where either you score 10 or you lose. Now there are different degrees of 10, so somebody shoots like a dead center 109 or 110 can actually hold their position, as compared to someone shooting an edge 10 or a line cutter. So a line cutter might be like 100, 101, and you can still lose someone who scores 103. That's a pretty cool takeover compared to automatic switch. So that's a nice way to increase the score gap, because having a slightly bad like 9 or 10 doesn't doom you. You can still recover with a much better 10. But at the same time, it also extends the score count, because good players will scramble for this extra 1 pointers. So it's pretty cool. Now, when I did my run, the problem I encountered was I didn't realize the caveat with the scoring. Now, I said before that the leaderboard is based on total points, total score for each round. And it didn't occur to me what that meant, and I think most people who played the first day haven't realized what it actually means. Because how do you gain a total score in a round of tic-tac-toe? Because there is a score value, but what does total score mean? So I was playing the bronze level matches, and the AI in bronze isn't that difficult, and you can win with suboptimal scoring. And I thought, oh, this is my first day, let's see how it works. So I just shot like crap, and I won my first 3 games. But then I realized, wait, it counts every arrow you shoot. So the caveat about total daily score dawned on me. I'm not supposed to win as quickly as possible. Winning in 3 to 4 shots puts me at a disadvantage, because a player who wins by drawing the game out to 7 shots by hitting all possible non-winning squares has more recorded scoring shots. You still have to win to progress, of course, but there's an incentive to play the most or the least optimal way to grind the most points. In other words, you have to play nearly to lose and hope the bot doesn't roll a high number like 104 and overtake you. Again, I'm going to clarify, I'm supposed to be shooting not well or not to win. I have to shoot well but not win the game until the very end, because if I win in 3 shots, that's a maximum of 330 points. But if someone else plays the same round but takes the full 7 shots to win, then they get 770 maximum points. Now this won't happen because it's really perfect, but that's like a few hundred points difference. Even though we both won the game, but the fact that I won quicker, which is the point of tic-tac-toe, I am actually losing points to someone who is playing a less optimal game, which doesn't make sense to me. It's a very bizarre way to play tic-tac-toe. It's counterintuitive to not only the classic game, but also the format that the entire MOBA app was based on, with the AI. Winning quickly and efficiently by securing 10s and close the game as quickly as possible. So if your opponent, whether it's AI or human, makes a mistake, you go for the kill, you go for the win. But in this event, you're actually supposed to maximize the number of arrows you need to win, which is, again, 7. So you do the long setup, and if the bot doesn't roll a number that screws you over and costs the game, then you actually get more points. So there is a strategy for qualifying. There is some risk reward. Do you win more games, or do you get more points from the games you do win? But that's a kind of a weird way to have this dual way to qualify, because either you base it on wins or you base it on a score value. You don't try to make wins harder to get more points. So that's weird to me. Now, this kind of reminds me of some like notorious football matches where the teams would deliberately try to score an own goal to get a better qualification. So you're trying to like lose the game so you qualify higher. That's how paradoxical it is. Or even say it's a chess game, but instead of like securing a checkmate when you can, the players are rewarded for capturing more pieces. It's baffling because in most sports where you have the chance to win but you don't take it, you're penalized because it goes against the spirit of the sport or the game. So by having this format where it rewards you for taking longer to play, it's baffling to me. It doesn't seem to make sense to incentivize a longer game. That, I think, is the worst part of this event. Now, again, the top players will still be top players. It doesn't really affect them. They'll score consistently. They'll win all the games. They'll get the 100-point average or something. But the problem is, if you're, say, trying to qualify for this and you're in the mid-level, then you're going to feel cheated because it's kind of like based on the AI and the RNG. So if you win too quickly, you're outscored by someone who took more shots, and it's not really a level playing field where everyone has the same number of shots, which is, to me, the biggest griefing of this game. So there are probably other ways you could do this more fairly. One would be, and again, in the spirit of it being a real archer and being run by World Archery rules, run a scoring round, a ranking round, like what we do in the Olympics. For those who don't know, the Olympics is actually a knockout tournament, but to qualify for that, there is a 72 arrow ranking round. So the top 32 from that ranking round qualify for the eliminations. You don't have to shoot 70 arrows in like tic-tac-toe, but the point is that everybody shoots the same number of arrows. So you don't have people who play, for example, a very long game with 7 arrows, or a very short game with 3 arrows, or you don't have people who only play like 5 arenas versus 9 arenas, because that means like someone who plays optimally with 7 shot wins for 9 games will get more shots than someone who plays like 3 with arrows per win. So that's why I think you really have to equalize by giving everyone the same chance. Now, This doesn't mean that there will be a tight system where like there'll be a lot of people stuck at 32. In fact, because you have the 110 point system, there will be a big gap because those single points and degrees of difference from the center will be a big tiebreaker. So that's one way you can do it, is to base it on total score. Remove the bot, because the bot's only there for RNG. So remove the bot, keep the moving targets, keep the arenas, keep the standard bow, and just have a standard scoring round. Because the ultimate goal of the ranking round is to seed the players so that the players who qualify actually have the skill to shoot in these arenas in these conditions with this bow. And that, I think, is a fair game. If you demonstrate and score high on the ranking round, then you are probably competitive enough to play in a real match in PvP. Now, alternatively, since the game is built around tic-tac-toe, and the game obviously wants to promote having an opponent, you don't want to remove the bot. I get that. So if you can't remove the bot and you really want to make this PvP and reward wins and risk taking, then you've got to make a leaderboard based on wins. So 9 wins get you on the leaderboard. You can't get to 8, but competitively, people probably get 9 out of 9. But then the tiebreakers are based not on total score, but by average score. So therefore, it doesn't really matter if you take 3 arrows or 7 arrows. It's just based on average arrow value. So if you average, say, 105 points per shot, then you are probably a better and more consistent archer than something that averages 99 per shot but still wins. This would favor more competitive mindsets where players will take risks to take over squares and win faster, but it doesn't put them at disadvantage because they shot more or less arrows. So you have you remove the total points, but you use average point value. I doubt this would happen because the game isn't coded for this sort of scoring, but look, it doesn't really matter because they can't reverse the course now. Like the game's already started, so it's already set. I just think it's a pretty bad way of doing it. Now, again, in the big picture, it's why I dislike the idea, apart from the whole esports shambles, is this whole thing could legitimately look fun to watch, and for the people playing it seriously, like the handful of people, it would actually be fun to compete. But for someone that's trying to watch this, it's just constantly moving goalposts. The elimination rounds are different from the qualifiers against the bots, and the qualifiers are different to the base game, which has a different scoring system with a different bot and different equipment, and that's different to the qualifiers played by the World Archery World Cup event. So just even the sheer lack of like a practice mode for the tournament that doesn't involve like paying gold and losing ranked matches, it just shows that this was not well thought out. The whole game is shoved out in a few weeks. There's no time for community, the devs don't interact, there's just nothing there. And this is being plugged front and center as Olympic Esports. We know this is a bad idea. We all knew that. Ultimately, the best players of this game, however many they are, will legitimately earn their place. I've spoken to them, I've seen them play, and they are really skilled. If you put time into learning this skill, whether it's esports or real sports, whatever, that's all power to you. So the best players will still qualify. They'll go to Singapore. I can only hope that this turns out well for them, and it gives them something for their future, it gives them a good life experience, because it's paid for with the dignity of our real sport.